All right, coming back to the race schedule, we have event 14, Men's Collegiate 2V Sharp Memorial Cup, Final A, Lane 1, Yale, Lane 2, California, Lane 3, Santa Clara, Lane 4, UC San Diego, Lane 5, Boston College, Lane 6, UC Davis, Lane 7, UC Santa Barbara, and Lane 8, Orange Coast.
And the crews are away. Men's Varsity 8 Grand Final. Very exciting to see 8 boats across. Right now, early race leader is California. Second spot is Yale over in lane 1. Golden Bears really shot out of the starting line. They've got 8 seats over Yale. Third position back to Boston College. And then too close to call. The only one that's off the pace a little bit is UC Santa Barbara in lane 7. But California really wanted to exert itself early as they now approach the 500-meter mark with close to a boat length advantage over Yale. Past the 500-meter mark, it still remains California on your race lead. UC San Diego holds on that third spot. Fourth is Santa Clara. Fifth is out here in lane 6, UC Davis. Boston College. Then Orange Coast College out here in lane 8. Final position being held down of UC Santa Barbara. Boy, the Golden Bears taking a big shift up here. They're ratcheting it up, trying to break free of the Bulldogs from Yale. It'll be interesting to see how things go when they approach that 1,000-meter mark. California on the lead by about a boat length. Yale now throwing us some counterpunch at them. Very impressive with those lead crews in terms of how they're making those boats go fast, as California now crosses the 1,000-meter mark with about an 8 or 9 seat advantage over Yale, but Yale is fighting back into that lead. And then it's several boats of open water back to the remainder of the crew. All crews still on it. The only off the pace a little is UC Santa Barbara. So that's the call, 1,000 meters with California, your race leader, closely followed by Yale.
Thank you, Jim. Last 1,000 meters here, we're seeing a pretty interesting race unfold. We have a lead pack with lane 2, California, about half a length over Yale in lane 1. Following behind that, it doesn't look like it is dispersed much. It looks like lane 4, UC San Diego, is holding on to about a half boat lead to a bunch, probably looks like about three different crews here nipping at their heels. Looks like we have UC Davis in lane 6 and Orange Coast in lane 8 making their push, not far behind them. Looks like lane 3 and lane 5, Santa Clara in lane 3, lane 5, Boston College. Everybody's doing work. Looks like all these crews are matching each other. Again, we're coming into the last 500 meters with this lead pack. Should be a pretty interesting fight here. It looks like these two crews are pulling even. I don't think Yale is going to go down easy here. It looks like Yale is being pushing back into San Diego. You standing on the beach might see a close race here. Looks like Yale has definitely pushed back into California, is making their move. California's responding. Both crews have taken the rate up. Again, this lead pack pushing out in front, open water back. We'll see a tight race for third place here as well, as lane 4, UC San Diego, is still out in front, leading the charge with about 3 crews right behind them. Crew UC Davis in lane 6, right behind them, pushing them up. And right across in lane 3, Santa Clara, not giving up either. We'll see what comes down. Hopefully this beach gets a little bit louder. Listen to the crowd going nuts here. Lane 1, Yale pushed out in front. Lane 2, California, now trying to hold on to the lead that they did have, but now surrendered to Yale. Yale taking the ball and running with it. Now finishing strong. Yale bringing the rate up. Cal bringing the rate up as well. Trying to play catch up here, but it might be too late. California rowing, pushing it here. Yale about three seats up. We see Yale crossing the line. California bringing it in. In lane 4, UC San Diego trying to keep their bow out in front, but now we see it developing. Lane 3, Santa Clara, pushing their bow out in front of lane 5, 6, and 8. Looks like UC San Diego has built up their lead and is now enjoying it, coming across the line in third place. Looks like fourth place is now being handed off to Santa Clara, who's now done work in this last couple hundred meters. UC San Diego crossing the line. Santa Clara closely behind Boston College, UC Davis, Orange Coast, and UC Santa Barbara in lane 7. Good work, gentlemen. That was a fun race to watch. Thank you very much. Just a reminder, weigh-ins closing at 10 a.m. That's roughly 25 minutes from now, so make sure that you get that in. Moving on to our next event, Event 8, the Women's Collegiate 2V Jackie Ann Stitt Hungness Trophy, Final B. Lane 1, we have Loyola Marymount. Lane 2, Tennessee. Lane 3, Oklahoma. Lane 4, Gonzaga. Lane 5, Sacramento State. Lane 6, SDSU.
Coming to you now.
We just had the 2-minute warning for the start of the next race. That'd be the Women's Collegiate Second Varsity 8B Final. Got 6 crews. Still a crosswind coming from the starboard side. So the coxswains have to be on their toes to point their bow a little bit away from the Crown Point shore side of the course. All crews on station, waiting for the alignments signal. Crews being pulled. Attention, go. Here we go. Another race underway. Always an exciting point of the race because it's controlled abandon. You want to get that up and going and yet still have control and not wildly go up and down your slide. Jumping out to an early lead in lane number 2, that's Tennessee. The boats out here, lanes 5 and 6. Sac State and San Diego State doing a nice job as we cross the 250 meter mark. Sacramento State now putting on a big push. Going bow ball to bow ball with the early leader, Tennessee. Third position being held by the Sooners from Oklahoma. Fourth spot over in lane 1 is Loyola Marymount. Then top race the two positions between Gonzaga in lane 4 and San Diego State. Coming to the 500-meter mark, Volunteers from Tennessee with about a 2-seat advantage over Oklahoma. Oklahoma push here. All crews making a big push. Oklahoma now asserts themselves and they now have the lead. Sacramento State is right there as well for that second spot, battling Tennessee. Quality racing, very competitive. All boats still overlap. Nobody's falling back out of contention. Coming up at the 750-meter mark, it's Oklahoma, race leader, over Sacramento State, although so Cecil going back to the spot between San State and Tennessee. San Diego State's right in there as well for that fifth spot. Loyola Marymount and Gonzaga are battling for the final two spots. Oklahoma really putting the hammer down now with a 6-seat advantage over Sacramento State. Sacramento State leads San Diego State just by a seat. Tennessee now putting on a push to get back in the hunt. But it's Oklahoma crossing the 1,000-meter mark first, then San Diego State, Sac State for second and third, then Tennessee for fourth. Fifth is Gonzaga. Is owned by one Loyola. Call 1,000 meters gone. Back to you at the tower, Sam.
Thank you, Jim. Crossing the 1,000-meter mark. Again, it looks like Oklahoma with its bow out front. About 2 to 3 seats back, we have lane 5, Sacramento State. Nipping at their heels about a seat back is SDSU. SDSU not far out in front of lane 2, Tennessee. Right behind Tennessee, you have fighting for that placement, lane 4, Gonzaga, and lane 1, Loyola Marymount. Again, these boats for this part of the race are still pretty close together. We're just crossed the 750 to go. We should see a little bit coming into second place. It looks like all the way on the outside, SDSU is making their push into Sacramento State for that second place. Looks like they might be pushing the other crews back a little bit with this endeavor. Out in front, Oklahoma sees this. They've tried to move it up by bringing their rate up. They brought their rate up. Now Sacramento State responding by also bringing their rate up. Out on the outside, SDSU, still a nice solid rhythm. Looks like they still haven't built into it yet. Oklahoma is now coming up on the 500-meter mark. Again, holds their lead over Sacramento State. Sacramento State doesn't look like they're going to take it for much longer. Hopefully they start moving up. SDSU is now looking to come into Sacramento State a little bit. That fourth place is also now being threatened. We have Tennessee women in lane 2 getting pushed into by Gonzaga in lane 4. Gonzaga might have the heat to do it. Lane 1, Loyola Marymount, looks like they want to start creeping up as well. Tennessee women have a little bit of work to hold on to this finishing spot. Out in front, Oklahoma looking solid, look like they've taken their lead early and enjoying their lead. As we come into the last 250 meters here of red buoys, again out in front is Oklahoma, lane 3. Looks like a tight race right behind them. For Sacramento State, out in lane 5. And in lane 2, Tennessee now coming up. As we cross the 250 to go into the red buoys, all crews are bringing the rate up. Oklahoma not taking any risks here. pushing out a little bit. Sacramento State also expanding their lead a little bit, looking outside to SDSU. SDSU is now pushing their bow ahead of Gonzaga. Gonzaga has worked their way back a little bit here. We'll see as they come into the last couple hundred meters. We have Oklahoma definitely asserting their dominance here in this race. Oklahoma out in front. We have on the outside Sacramento State. Sacramento State holding their lead. Looks like out in SDSU, out in lane 6, might have to look across, hold this out in front of Gonzaga. Gonzaga giving it their all here. Now we've got lane 2, Tennessee coming up into it. Lane 2, Tennessee showing some speed here in the last bit of the race. Oklahoma crossing the line. Sacramento State getting second place. Third place looks like a cross between SDSU, Gonzaga, and Tennessee. Lane 1, Loyola Marymount. Good job, women. Nice race. Nice racing there. Last couple hundred meters. Good work. Continuing event 8, Women's Collegiate 2V, Jackie Ann Stitt Hungness Trophy, Final A. We have lane 1, California. Lane 2, Washington. Lane 3, Stanford. Lane 4, Washington State. Lane 5, UCLA. Lane 6, Texas Austin.
Back at the start, women's Varsity 8 grand final. We have a start. We're sitting at about the 200 meter mark, so as they come to us, we'll be able to tell you exactly where the crews are. Looks pretty level, straight across the fleet here. All right, let's take a look. California lane 1 seems to have a bit of advantage, although Stanford in lane 3 really asserting themselves as we pass the 250 meter mark. So now it's Stanford, California, then Washington in that third spot. And then we come out to lane 6 with Texas. Then it's UCLA and Washington State trails. Quite a battle for that lead between Stanford in lane 3, California lane 1, and Washington. I can hear the Texas coxswain calling for a power 10 here as we approach the 500 meter mark. Crossing the 500 meter mark in the lead position is the Cardinal from Stanford, rowing at 36.5 strokes per minute. Second spot being held down by California, merely just 2 seats behind the leader. Then 2 seats behind California is Washington. And then Texas hanging on, still has an overlap over that third place Washington crew. Then ballet about a half length down, and trailing is Washington State. Crews now approach the 750 meter mark. California putting on a big push here as Stanford still leads the race, but not by much, maybe 2 seats. Washington also ratcheting things up here a little bit. Great boat race. Fabulous boat race. Stanford's shifted down a bit, 35 strokes. Still has a 3-seat advantage in lane 3 over the Golden Bears, California in lane 1. But Washington is only a seat and a half down to California. Those 3 crews have kind of separated themselves from the rest of the field, with the exception of Texas, who's battling valiantly out here in lane 6. They still have an overlap with the third place crew. But as we approach the 1,000 meter mark, Stanford really exerting themselves now with a half a boat length advantage. California and Washington going bow ball to bow ball for that second and third position. Texas isn't out of it. They're being very bold here, trying to establish a chance at getting that second, third position. But it's going to be Stanford, your race leader, as we pass the 12, or come up to the 1,250 meter mark, with California a slight lead in second over Washington, and then it's Texas. Back to your tower.
Thank you, Jim. Another interesting race here as we watch these crews all the way across are already into the mid-high 30s. It looks like these women are not going to let up. We are crossing the 750 meter mark here. Looks like, again, this is going to be another interesting race. Leading pack right now, Stanford women showing their bow ball out in front. It looks like between California and Washington, lane 1, lane 2. Now we're having to deal with Texas out in lane 6. We'll see this race unfold as we get into the last 500 meters now. The wind is being dying down, so these women now have pretty even conditions all the way across. Let's see who takes it. From where we're sitting, lane 3, Stanford women looking pretty solid. Watching these rates as these women approach, they're already coming in pretty high. Seeing these women come up into the high 30s, low 40s for stroke rating will really try and separate these boats out. All the way across, these coxswains are doing a good job of matching stroke for stroke. As we look at lane 1 now, California coming up on the inside here, coming up on lane 2, Washington. Hopefully these two crews are able to push it back into Stanford women coming in here. Austin, Texas, again, not giving up from that outside lane, coming in, trying to push into that third position spot. But right now, we kind of have a duel coming out of the first 3 lanes here, lane 3, lane 2, and lane 1 respectively. These women are pushing for the line. Now as we enter the red buoys, we still have lane 3, Stanford women, about a length out in front of lane 2, Washington. Washington making a push now into Stanford women. Again, Washington in lane 2 taking the rate up. Don't forget lane 1, California. California now bringing the rate up. These 3 boats coming together a little bit. Let's see if they can hold off their leads coming into the last couple hundred meters here. Austin still trying to throw heat out there from lane 6. Following up here, we have a little bit of overlap now as Washington is pushed back into Stanford. Stanford now holding off. Looks like they're able to hold it off. They've got their lead early. Stanford holding off Washington. Washington now doing their damnedest to hold off California. California trying to push back into Washington. It looks like they might have run out of a little bit of time. Crossing the line, we have Stanford women, lane 3. We have Washington barely squeaking out second place. California, lane 1. Texas, lane 6. UCLA, lane 5. Washington State, lane 4. Thank you, women, for a close race. It's fun to watch. Congratulations. We'll go on to event number 2, Women's Varsity UC San Diego Health Cup, Final B. Lane 1, St. Mary's. Lane 2, University of Wisconsin. Lane 3, Fordham. Lane 4, UC San Diego.
Coming to your 3, 2, now.
We'll start for in this race. Leader in 1, St. Mary's, with the University of Wisconsin about 3 seats down in that second position. And lane 4, UC San Diego holding that third with Fordham. The Rams being off the pace by about a half a boat length. 250 meters down. And suddenly a big move made by UC San Diego. as they assert themselves into the lead. The Badgers coming back as well. Race straight across, all four boats in contention. But it's still UC San Diego by the slimmest of margins. Maybe a seat and a half over Wisconsin, with the Gales from St. Mary's holding down that third spot, and Fordham's off the pace just a touch. UC San Diego strikes at 35 strokes per minute as we pass through the 500-meter mark, with Wisconsin now putting on a big push. Wisconsin's now your race leader. Wisconsin in the blue shell, red blades. UC San Diego closest to the camera. And then it's St. Mary's in close to the shore, with Fordham trailing just slightly. Crisp catches by the Badger crew, as they now have an 8-seated advantage over San Diego. Fifty gone. Wisconsin, your race leader. UC San Diego holds down that second spot. St. Mary's, who's in third, lane 1. And then it's Fordham in that final position. Wisconsin really going after it here. 37 strokes per minute. One advantage over UC San Diego. Lead crew now approaches the 1,000-meter mark. That's Wisconsin, followed by UC San Diego. About a half boat length back for that third spot is St. Mary's, who is about 8 seats up on Fordham. Wisconsin really going for it. High stroke cadence. We'll see if they have enough fuel in the tank to make it all the way to the finish. That's the call, 1,000 meters.
Thank you, Jim. Last 1,000 meters here with this 4-boat race. We definitely are seeing a lot of these crews trying to push out early and get that lead to try and hold it into the last 500 meters. That said, the conditions have lessened a little bit, so hopefully all the way across pretty even. Right now we have in lane 2, University of Wisconsin. They look like they've pushed out about a length, maybe bow to stern on lane 4, UC San Diego. UC San Diego is now a little bit of open. Looks like a fight for third place here between Fordham and St. Mary's. Fordham and St. Mary's matching each other stroke for stroke almost. Looks like University of Wisconsin not taking any chances. In the B final, they're pushing the rate up a little bit here, trying to increase their lead over UC San Diego. UC San Diego obviously looking across. Yeah, all crews pushing the rate up now. We see University of Wisconsin is now at a 35-36. Followed up by UC San Diego. UC San Diego is at a 32-33. A little bit of room to build here. Those girls would probably want to take it up, try to build a little bit of more speed here into the last 500 meters. Still University of Wisconsin out in front. UC San Diego now out of lane 1. St. Mary's pushing up a little bit on Fordham in lane 3. St. Mary's pushing their bow ball here into UC San Diego a little bit. UC San Diego, again, trying to bring their rate up. Now they have room to build. Trying to get into that last 250 meters. As we roll into the last 250 meters here, you can see University of Wisconsin out in front. Nice solid rhythm from University of Wisconsin. They've got a view of all the boats behind them. It looks like UC San Diego isn't standing for it, trying to make their push out from lane 4. Here in lane 1, St. Mary's pushing back into UC San Diego. Maybe we'll see a little bit of sparks fly here in the last 250, as St. Mary's has definitely just brought their stroke rate up, high 30s. St. Mary's is trying to make their push as UC San Diego got enough of a lead to hold on to it. Fordham University trying to bring their rate up to hold on to the other crews who have already gone. University of Wisconsin, having a view of the whole thing, has now taken their rate up. University of Wisconsin trying to push across the line. Looks like they've done their work early. They will be getting in first here. Looks like UC San Diego is now holding about a half boat lead out in front of lane 1, St. Mary's. Lane 1, St. Mary's still trying to do work here, still trying to push into them, shortening up again, calling it up. Coxon can obviously see it cross, see where they need to go. Crossing the line, University of Wisconsin. UC San Diego. St. Mary's. And Fordham. Continuing on our race schedule, we continue with event 2, Women's Varsity UC San Diego Health Cup, Final A. Lane 1, Georgetown. Lane 2, San Diego. Lane 3, Sacramento State. Lane 4, Drexel. Lane 5, Seattle Pacific. Lane 6, Loyola Marymount.
Back at the starting line, we're waiting the start of race number 87. I believe I heard this say there's 2 minutes to go, so things are pretty consistent weather-wise. Tide is still coming in, which is good, but not an excessive amount of crosswind. As you can probably see, the coxswains aren't having to scull too much to keep their boats pointed towards us over here in lane 10. I know that Sam has given you the lane assignments, but I'll reiterate that since we have a bit of time here. Georgetown is in lane 1, San Diego in 2, Sacramento State is in 3, the Drexel Dragons are in lane 4, Seattle Pacific in 5, Loyola Marymount in 6. Okay, here we go. Polling the crews, Sacramento, Seattle, Loyola. Attention, go. There's the start. I'm sitting at about 50, so until they come up to me, it's hard to see exactly who jumps out unless they really jump out. And right now it appears Georgetown in lane 1 is doing just that. As I say that, the other crews respond, and it's pretty darn level. The only crew off the pace a little bit is Seattle Pacific in lane 5. Wow. Good boat race. All markers within 2 or 3 seats of each other. Still Georgetown on the lead, but Loyola Marymount out here in lane 6 is not going to be denied. High cadence as they make their shift. Usually by the 500-meter mark, their prescribed race pace. Very good boat race between Loyola Marymount out here in lane 6 and Drexel in lane 4. Inside crews battling back and forth as we cross the 500-meter mark. It's Drexel, your race leader, in lane 4. Drexel striking the water at a spirited 36.5 strokes per minute. with now about a half a boat length advantage over Loyola Marymount, lane 6. And 7. And back to Georgetown in the inside lanes. Anybody's race. All within 8-10 seats. The only one off the pace a little bit is Seattle Pacific. 750 down. And it's still Drexel, your raider. Okay, 6 seats now. We're in a very nice 3.5 stroke per minute cadence. Well, again, that's Drexel. The Dragons have a lead of about 8 seats over Loyola Marymount as those two separate themselves from the rest of the field. Third position being held by Sacramento State. Seattle Pacific has put on a big push here, contending for that 5th spot. At the 1,000-meter mark, it's Drexel on the lead by 8-9 seats over Loyola Marymount. Then it's Sacramento State, and then too close to call for the remaining spots. That's the call. Great racing. Back to you, Sam, at the tower.
Thank you, Jim. Second 1,000 meters here, we've seen a separation a little bit. Drexel has done a lot of work to push themselves out in front, having their bow ball now with open water on the rest of the crews except for Loyola Marymount out in lane 6. Loyola Marymount doing the best they can to hold on to them. After Loyola Marymount, barely any crossover here. The next in line is Sacramento State in lane 3. Again, there's a little bit of overlap right behind them, though. It's about a seat difference per boat. Behind Sacramento State is San Diego in lane 2. And then in lane 1, Georgetown and Seattle Pacific in lane 5, pushing those two crews. Again, pretty tight racing for that 3rd place spot. Now crossing the 750 to go. Let's see these crews moving around a little bit. The rate will probably come up a little as they need the 500 to go meter mark. All these crews are moving pretty quickly. Again, pretty flat water, nice sunny day, great conditions for rowing. We see Drexel here. Drexel pushing it along at a 37. I guess they're not taking any chances here. Loyola Marymount not far behind. Loyola Marymount looks like they're trying to mount an attack here, bringing the rate up about a beat or two. And then last 500 meters here. Now all the crews crossing the 500 meters. Again, first and second, we have Drexel out in front. We have Loyola Marymount out in 6th, but for 3rd place, all the way across, this could be a tight fight here as we see these crews, Seattle Pacific, San Diego, and Georgetown moving up now. Sacramento State, lane 3, leads the charge. Now we're seeing Seattle Pacific push their bow ball out ahead a little bit. Seattle Pacific now taking the rate up. I don't think they're going to take this lightly on them. Drexel out in front. Again, they've got that view all the way across. Their coxswain knows what to do. They're taking the rate up. No chances here in the A final. We've got Drexel in lane 4 out in front. Lane 6, Loyola Marymount on the outside. Now we're starting to see some crews creep up on their stern deck. Loyola Marymount trying to hold on to that lead. They're watching these crews out in lane 1, 2, and 3, and 5, trying to bring it up. Bringing it into the line, we've got crews in lane 3, Sacramento State, San Diego, Seattle Pacific, San Diego, Georgetown, all trying to make that push for the 3rd place. It looks like it's going to be another photo finish here, all. Drexel did their work early, got out in front. Drexel will be crossing the line first. Now still in 2nd place is Loyola Marymount, but it's creeping up. It looks like that fight for 3rd is bringing it to their doorstep. Lane 2 here, San Diego, now making that final push. Lane 3 holding on to them, Sacramento State. Looks like another photo finish. Seattle Pacific finishing just behind them. with Georgetown in lane 1 bringing it up. All right, thank you, ladies. It was fun to watch. Congratulations. We move on. Event 12, Men's Varsity American Specialty Health Cup, Final B. In lane 1, we have Boston College. Lane 2, West Point. Lane 3, San Diego. Lane 4, Fordham. Lane 5, Loyola Marymount. Lane 6, SDSU. Lane 7, University of Calgary. Lane 8, Long Beach State Rowing.
We have a start. Event number 88. Second final in varsity. Right out of the box, it's Boston College over in lane 1. And then it's University of San Diego in the second spot in lane 3. Cadets from West Point in lane 2 holding down that third spot. And then quite a battle for the next 3 positions. University of San Diego doing a nice job of coming back into this race. They're now up by 2 seats over Boston College. Nobody's running away with it, excuse me. University of San Diego still at a high cadence, 37.5, their 500-meter mark. Now 36.5. So it's University of San Diego on the lead with Boston College at second. University of San Diego continues to hold the lead. Quite a battle for that second spot between lane 1 and lane 2. And West Point. Loyola Marymount doing a nice job for that 4th position. Fordham holding on to 5th, and the other boats are off the pace. Start to see who makes their first mark. Still, University of San Diego, your race leader. Quite a fist fight for 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th position. So we're approaching the 1,000-meter mark. Still, the Toreros from University of San Diego, 1st position. Almost 1 boat length ahead of West Point, who has 2 seats over Georgetown. And then a very close battle for 4th and 5th between Fordham and Loyola Marymount, and then the rest of the fleet. That's the call. 1,000 meters. Back to you at the tower.
Thank you, Jim. Coming in the last 1,000 meters here, again, straight across, we have some good racing. Looks like in lane 3, San Diego has pushed themselves out in front about a length. Fighting a duel here. There's a couple of duels now. Fighting a duel here is West Point in lane 2 and just slightly second place over Boston College in lane 1. Both those crews, I would say, is about a boat length. Fighting for 4th and 5th. Technically, in the line for 2nd is Fordham and Loyola Marymount. Both those crews are still very much into this. As we see it's unfolding in the last 750 meters, all crews across are now taking the rate up. I don't think anybody's sparing any runway here to chance. So each crew across the board is now taking the rate up. Looks like out in front, San Diego is now into the mid-30s stroke rate wise. If you're looking at this coming down the course, it looks like they lead the way with even boats on either side of them. Again, making that push. Lane 1, lane 2, and lane 3 all the way across, and then lane 4 and lane 5 just behind them. So hopefully we see these crews in the last 500 meters pushing themselves. Lane 3, San Diego out in front. Lane 1, Boston College now pushing their bow ball out in front of West Point. Again, we're seeing this on the monitor and hopefully on the Jumbotron. So hopefully you'll see this as these crews come into the last 250 meters. Everybody on the beach getting loud, making sure these guys cross the line full speed. Great to hear that crowd participation. Lane 3 still pushing out in front here. Lane 3 with a little bit of open water on lane 1, Boston College. Boston College being chased down by West Point. I don't think West Point's going to give this up easily. Lane 1, Boston College having to make that push early. Now seeing if it pays off. San Diego holding on to their lead, now being pushed back into by Boston College in lane 1. Boston College now seeing that they have a chance, might be bringing this back. Let's see if San Diego can hold on to this. Boston College making the push, now leaving West Point a little bit. West Point wanting that third place finish, now has a boat length lead over Fordham. Fordham still pushing the crews off the back of them. We see this race now unfolding as San Diego has now cemented their lead coming into the finish with about a boat length lead over Boston College. Boston College now a couple seats on West Point. West Point responding, seeing if they can bring it back. Boston College might have done it right here at the last minute. West Point crossing the line into third place. Out in lane 4 coming in fourth place, Fordham College. Behind them a little bit of open water back, Loyola Marymount. Crossing the line outside of that, SDSU men. University of Calgary. And lane 8, Long Beach State Rowing. All right, continuing with our support today, American Specialty Health. American Specialty Health founder George DeVries rowed at Culver Military Academy and at UCSD. Thank you all American Specialty Health for all your support. Moving on now on our schedule, Event 12, Men's Varsity American Specialty Health Cup, Final A. Lane 1, UC San Diego. Lane 2, Purdue. Lane 3, UC Santa Barbara. Lane 4, Santa Clara. Lane 5, UC Davis. Lane 6, Orange Coast. Lane 7, MIT. Lane 8, UCLA.
The starter is pulling the crews for race number 89. 8 boats in this race. She just said Orange Coast, MIT, UCLA. Attention, go. And the race is underway. All crews away without incident. UC San Diego is really exploding out of that start, and then it's pretty tight all the way across the board. Yeah, the Tritons have about 5-6 seats over the rest of the fleet. Second spot right now is, looks like Purdue might be there. Orange Coast is battling nicely. Also Santa Clara. It's shift time, as all crews still have an overlap. But it's UC San Diego as we approach the 500 meter mark on the lead. going to move up here a little bit so I can see exactly where the boats stand. 5 meters gone. Lane 1, your race leader, UC San Diego. If we move up a little bit further, I can see who's in second, third, fourth place. The only crew off a little bit right now is in lane 8. But it's UC San Diego on the lead, with Santa Clara holding down that second spot. Purdue's right in there, duking it out, along with Purdue. Then it's Orange Coast College, UC Davis, the engineers from MIT. 7:50 in the books, and it still continues to be the local crew from San Diego, UC San Diego. Your race leader with Purdue at second spot, about 8 seats down. And then it's Santa Clara in third spot, and it's Orange Coast College. And then quite a battle from there on back, with UCLA just being off the pace compared to the rest of the fleet. Coming up to the 1,000 meters, making a nice move now. UC San Diego still on the lead. The coxswain's really going to the whip here. As is Orange Coast. Orange Coast making a nice move. MIT making a move. In fact, Santa Clara is now level to UC San Diego. So it's Santa Clara, UC San Diego, Purdue, then it's Orange Coast College, then MIT, and then a very close race with Davis, UC Santa Barbara, and then UCLA. That's the call. Halfway done. Back to you at the tower.
Thank you, Jim. If you haven't been able to tell, this is some pretty close racing. Jim's been trying to call it as close as he can, but coming down the course now, last 1,000 meters, actually last 750, it looks like in lane 4, we have Santa Clara sticking their bow out, just maybe 3 or 4 seats ahead of lane 2, Purdue. Lane 2 is only a seat or 2 up on lane 1, UC San Diego. And from there, we've got a little bit of separation, but it looks like lane 1 and lane 2 are already pushing back into Santa Clara. Hopefully Santa Clara hasn't gone too early here. As we come down to the last 500 meters, we've got a lot of boats across here. It looks like 1, 2, and 3 are all about a boat length up on lane 5, lane 6, Orange Coast. Orange Coast, then again, just ahead of lane 3, UC Santa Barbara. This is going to get real tight here in the last 250 meters, so you might want to walk out to the beach to watch this one. Again, we got out in lane 4, we have Santa Clara making their push, really trying to get it here, but lanes 1 and 2 have definitely ramped it up. Looks like UC San Diego and Purdue are going to try and take the lead on this one. From the overall view, it looks like they've already made their move and pushed out in front, so now Purdue in lane 2 is now out to a good, healthy lead, leading into the last into the last 250 here, into the red buoys. Lane 1 not letting go. UC San Diego now fighting for it. We're going to see if Santa Clara can now hold their lead, hold these crews off from behind. These crews from behind are coming up. That 4th place, we're not going to be able to call it because it's going to be a tight one. Here we go. Now we have a fight, a duel off here between lane 1 and lane 2. You see San Diego and Purdue going neck and neck. Looks like Purdue's making the push. Will UC San Diego be able to respond? Lane 4, Santa Clara again holding those crews off. They're building it up for 4th place. All the way across, we have lane 2. Purdue is now crossing the line in 1st place. They've done their work. They pushed themselves out in front. Lane 2, Purdue finished crossing the line. Lane 1, UC San Diego doing work. Walking through Santa Clara, holding off all the crews. All the way across. Pretty tight finish. It's going to have to be a photo finish. You have to go online to look at that one. We have UCLA out in lane 5. Good racing, gentlemen. Thank you for that. That was fun to watch. Congratulations. We go on to our next event. Oh, sorry. We have an advertisement for you. We have Sharp. Catch heart disease early. Book your heart health screening today. Visit sharp.com/Cushman. We also have N&D Sports. N&D Sports has been a merchandise provider for the Super Bowl for over 20 years, and they are now at the Crew Classic. Check out all their great products at the merchandise tent. Welcome to the 46th. Again, for the 46th annual San Diego Crew Classic, check out the merchandise tent, N&D Sports. They've stocked all the latest and greatest in the San Diego Crew Classic gear. Come to the merchandise tent and get this year's quote-unquote classic t-shirt. I'd also like to shout out to Carl's Jr. Carl's Jr. is a proud supporter of the San Diego Crew Classic. Visit their food truck during the event. Carl's Jr., making people happy through food. My favorite, Stone Brewery. Visit the beer garden and taste one of the best local craft brews in the U.S. Stone Brewing, opened in San Diego, California in 1996, and has been called the, quote, all-time top brewery on planet Earth. Believe that, planet Earth. That was made by Beer Advocate magazine twice. Stone is the 9th largest craft brewer in the U.S. and has breweries in Richmond, Virginia, and Berlin, Germany. Going now to races, Event 1, Women's Collegiate Varsity Jessop-Whittier Cup, Final B. In Lane 1, we have Tennessee, 2, Stanford Lightweight Women, 3, Gonzaga, 4, Oklahoma, and 5, SDSU.
Now,
Race number 90 is underway. Varsity B final. Level competition all the way across. Stanford's lightweight women jumped out to an early lead. And now a big push by San Diego State over here in lane 5. Tennessee over in lane 1 appears to be in that 4th spot, with Gonzaga, the Bulldogs, holding on to 2nd or 3rd position. As you can see in the camera, they're seesawing back and forth. The Stanford crew, the lightweight women crew, still own the lead as we approach the 500-meter mark. Stanford going at 36.5 strokes per minute. Still with a slight lead over Gonzaga. San Diego State out here in lane 5 is not going to be denied, as is Tennessee on the inside. Closest overall fleet of racers the entire morning. And the conditions couldn't be any better, although I can see the winds shift. Way to go. 7:50 gone. Stanford still holding a slight lead over Gonzaga. 3rd position now being held down by Oklahoma. And then inside to Tennessee. San Diego State now falling back slightly. The lightweight women from Stanford still on the lead by about 2 seats over Gonzaga. Oklahoma was making a move there, but off the pace a bit as well. Wind clearly has shifted now to the west. It's coming from lane 1 towards lane 8. Anticipate it as they come up to this open where the bridge is. But 1,000-meter mark, wow, it's really getting tight now. But Stanford still owns a. Oh my goodness. Over Oklahoma, Gonzaga, and Tennessee on the inside lane. San Diego State isn't out of it. Anybody's race, but Stanford still clawing to that lead that they've had from the beginning as they passed the 1,000-meter mark. So I'll hand it over to you, Dan, as this race continues.
Thank you, Jim. As Jim alluded to, we are now seeing this wind turn from a whisper to a full-on side port wind, from the port side, sorry. So hopefully these crews coming up on the 750 to go can handle that. We noticed that the lightweight women in lane 2 have definitely made a push out in front. The lightweight women from Stanford, hopefully they are able to anticipate this wind and deal with it accordingly. It looks like they are. They are still out in front with their bow ball, about a bow deck out in front of lane 4, Oklahoma. Oklahoma pushing this right along, right with Gonzaga. Gonzaga and Oklahoma are pretty much neck and neck for that second/third place spot. Looking at 4th and 5th now. SDSU from the outside is starting to make their push. It looks like Tennessee women have their work cut out for them coming in here to the last 500 meters. We're seeing this wind push these crews a little bit to the starboard side of their lanes. Again, this is going to start developing as the day goes on. As you can see, the flags going from now just lofting to a full-on wind coming from the west. So we'll see this affecting races as they go on. Getting back to the race, Stanford lightweight women maintaining that lead. We see them bring their rate up here. All crews across. It looks like lane 3, Gonzaga, is now pushing out. Lane 4, Oklahoma and Gonzaga dueling neck and neck. Looks like Gonzaga's not going to have it, and they're going to try and push now a bow length lead over Oklahoma. Oklahoma and Tennessee women coming in neck and neck. Looks like Oklahoma and Tennessee are going to have to figure out who goes for 3rd place here, as Gonzaga now pushes up to a couple more seats ahead, now digging into Stanford women. Stanford women coming into the last 250 first will now have to bring their rate up to maintain their lead. Stanford women with about half a boat length lead here over Gonzaga. Gonzaga is now pushed off to about 3 or 4 seats over Oklahoma and Tennessee. Oklahoma and Tennessee now have to see what they can do. SDSU from the outside now needing to bring their rate up to make sure the last couple hundred meters here inside the red buoys, they bring the heat. Out in front, we still have the Stanford lightweight women who have led a great race this whole race. They've led from out in front, really pushing it here. They deserve to cross that line first. They've really proved themselves. It's not going to be easy, though. Gonzaga from lane 3 has now made a push. Now lane 4, Oklahoma, trying to beat Gonzaga. We're coming down to the last few strokes here. We got to see if they have enough time to. Lane 2, Stanford women, has secured their lead and is now going to cross the line first. Gonzaga, lane 3, has now done their final push, is now finishing in front of Oklahoma. Oklahoma finishing 3rd, just in front of Tennessee women. Tennessee women finishing the race right in front of SDSU. Good racing, ladies. Thank you for a tight race. It was fun to watch. We continue event 1, Women's Collegiate Varsity Jessop-Whittier Cup Invitational, Final A. Lane 1, we have Washington. Lane 2, California. Lane 3, Stanford. Lane 4, Texas. Lane 5, UCLA. Lane 6, Washington State.
At the starting line, all crews are posed for the grand final of the Jessop-Whittier. As I mentioned in the last race, the wind now has gone to the prevailing westerly that's San Diego is historically known for. Crews are being polled. UCLA, Washington State. Attention, and we have a start. No glaring incidents of water being thrown up by these experienced women as they leap onto the course. As the crews come up to me, it's the Washington Huskies with a very slight advantage over California. And then it's Stanford in 3rd spot. Texas, UCLA, then Washington State. 250 gone. Lane 1, your race leader by a slim margin. That's Washington, leading California. California with a 2-seat advantage over Stanford. And then it's Texas, half a shell back. 5th position being held down by UCLA. And off the pace just a bit is Washington State. Powerful strokes being taken by these women as we approach the 500-meter mark. California now makes a big move. And they jump into the lead over Washington in lane 1. 500 gone. Just as I say that, Washington counter punches, and it's just back and forth. Stanford still holding down that 3rd position with Texas in 4th. UCLA now about a length astern of that 4th place Texas crew, and Washington State trails. California now on the lead. California is striking the water at 36.5 strokes per minute. Nice move being made by Texas out here, closest to the launch. Washington is working to hold on to that California crew, but it's still California on the lead. Washington in that 2nd position, and now Texas challenges for that 3rd spot over Stanford. California taking a move here as we approach the 1,000-meter mark. When I say makes a move, it's usually a power 10 or assertion of power, trying to break free from the crews that are trailing or right next to them. But it's California, your race leader, with Texas now in that 2nd spot. 3rd is owned by Washington, and then it's Stanford, UCLA, and Washington State. See if I can get a shot right straight across this 1,000-meter mark, and I can, and it's the Golden Bears of University of California, Washington, Texas, virtually even for the 2nd and 3rd spots, and Stanford right in there as well. Open water behind those 4 crews is UCLA in that 5th spot, and open water from the crew is Washington State. Should be a great finish. I'll turn it back to you at the finish tower, Sam.
Thank you, Jim. We always love getting great finishes here in the last 1,000 meters. As we said before, this wind is turning from haha, we love watching it, to oh no, I have to race in this afternoon, as we see the flags getting a little bit more blown straight out. There at the 500 to go and the 750, these crews are about to cross over into this. It looks like lane 2, California, has pushed out to about a 3 to 4 boat length over lane 1 and lane 4. Lane 1 being Washington, lane 4 being Texas. Nipping at everybody's heels. Lane 3, Stanford. We just saw their lightweight women do an amazing job. Now we have to see how all these boats shake out coming into the last 500 meters. Again, it is tight racing. Anything can happen in 500 meters. All crews not risking it. We see the rates coming up a little bit here. As Jim said, at the 1,000-meter mark, you usually see a lot of crews taking their moves. Now we see the crews bringing the rates up. 500 meters, 2 beats up. We're going to see some racing here, as in lane 2, California is now three seats out. We see out in lane 4, Texas has definitely made their move. They're letting it being known as they're pushing back into California. We might have another great race here. Lane 1, Washington holding on to what they have. Lane 3, Stanford trying to make their move, trying to be known, trying to have their name up into this lineup coming into the last 250 meters. We're seeing the red buoys coming up. Again, on the beach, I want to hear some noise from this crowd. Let's get the crowd going here. Listening to these boats coming in the last 250 meters here. Lane 2, we have California with their bow out in front. Lane 4, Texas now making their push, digging back into California a little bit. Washington responding the call. They've now brought their rate up. Washington now ready to become a player in this last 200, 300 meter race. Stanford women trying their best, but now bow to stern on the top three boats. Top three boats making their push. Looks like in lane 2, California has gotten their lead and is going to hold on to it. Don't count them out yet. In lane 1, Washington building their speed up. Out lane 4, Texas trying to hold on. Looks like they're getting in third place though, as lane 1, Washington comes up the inside. It's coming down to the line. Can California hold them off? California in lane 2 trying to hold off lane 1, Washington. Lane 1, Washington now making their push. Lane 4, Texas now emptying the take. We have California in lane 2, Washington in lane 1, Texas in lane 4, and Stanford in lane 3. UCLA lane 5. And Washington State lane 6. Thank you, ladies. It was a fun race to watch. Congratulations. We now continue on to event 11, Men's Collegiate Varsity Copley Cup Invitational, Final A. This should be a fun race to watch. As we saw earlier yesterday, Yale and California both shut it down at the 1,000-meter mark. Hopefully today they've saved up their energy and we'll see a fun race. We have in lane 1, Yale, lane 2, California. Again, this will hopefully be a barn burner all the way down, as both crews have had very good racing yesterday, but an awesome final this morning.
Down at the starting line, the premier event for men's crew, the Copley Cup, with two of the most sturdy crews in rowing. We have Yale and lane 1. They started in 1843. California started in 1868. And we have a start. Wow, here we go. Amazing to watch quality, fast crews. Thing that comes to mind is the song, Smoke in the Water, because they're burning up the course. Yale jumps out to a two-seat advantage right off the start. High cadence. California at 41 strokes per minute. Yale a beat higher. They're probably going to keep that stroke cadence up a little higher than these other crews just because of the pedigree of their athletes. Yale making a big push now. 6 seats, 7 seats, now 8 seats on California. Yale still striking the water at 40 as we approach the 500-meter mark. They want to establish some dominance early and see if they can hold off this Golden Bear crew. 500 meters gone. Yale, your race leader. Yale coxswain sitting even with the bow of the California boat. California at 40. Yale at 38.5, 39. Yale inching their way. Will be denied. They realize they've got to keep the pressure on or it's race over. Yale still striking at the 7 mark, on the lead with a sliver of open water at 38 strokes per minute. California now at 37. I can see the Yale coxswain's head bobbing a little bit, which usually means he's giving him something to strive for. California moving back now, trying to get an overlap. It's Yale on the lead at their halfway point. Yale at 37. California at 37. Two heavyweights standing toe-to-toe throwing punches. Yale with about 6 feet of open water as we pass the 1,000-meter mark. Both crews still at 36.5, 37. But it's Yale in lane 1 on the lead. Yellow Empacher. Making a big push now, trying to get an overlap. Trying to get some pressure on that California crew. Excuse me, on the Yale crew. Relative position hasn't changed much in the last 500 meters, but it's still Yale Bulldogs on the lead. Yale's at 38 strokes per minute, with probably 15 feet now of open water over California. California.
Thank you, Jim. Coming in the last 500 meters here, again, this is a scorcher. We have Yale out in front. What we thought would be a start and sprint from the starting line now appears to be them building back up in the last 500. Both crews rowing at a 38 to 40 for the first half of the race. Now we are interested to see how this ends. Looks like Yale in lane 1 is rowing at Yale is at a 34-35. This Cal crew trying to make up a little bit of distance here is now at a 35-36. So again, both crews blowing it out in the front end at 38-40, seeing how they end this and are able to ramp it up in what is now the last 250 meters of the race. Yale still open water over the Cal crew. Cal still trying to make up some ground here, rowing about 2 to 3 beats higher. We'll see if both these crews start ramping it up here in the finish. Both solid crews, both showing a lot of speed out here today, a lot of maturity. Both these crews know what they're doing. Yale coming in here, the finish line, red buoys. Yale now swinging it around at a 36-37. Cal shortening up a little bit, knowing what they have to do, about 2 beats higher. Cal trying to bring their bow up to the stern of Yale. Yale has done their work. Now in the last couple hundred meters of the race, we can see how experienced both these crews are and how well they row. Yale crossing the line first. Good race, guys. Kyle in lane 2. Rows next.
Okay, starting.
Congratulations to both Yale and California. That was a well-rowed race. We continue now with a few advertisements before our next event. We have Freedom Rows. Anybody that was here yesterday afternoon saw Freedom Rows coming down the course. Once again, the Crew Classic welcomes Freedom Row athletes to participate in our regatta. Thank you for allowing us to support this program that continues to provide our military veterans. MBYC, Mission Bay Yacht Club, mans our waterways and protects our course and athletes. Thank you so much for your never-ending support of this regatta. All right, now we've got something special for you. We have the National Team Exhibition Final. In this race, we have a lot of current and past national team members. We'll be able to go through a few names, hopefully when the race starts. Again, this is a mix of old and new national team members. A lot of Olympians in each lineup. Should be a fun race, should be very competitive. Hopefully we see a lot of yelling and whatnot. hopefully we can keep these boats across from running into each other. But again, very competitive women. Hope to see a lot of good racing. All right, I've just been told that after the national team exhibition event, there will be a meet and greet by our champions tent up here on top of the hill here at the venue. I've been told that at this meet and greet will be Anita DeFrance, Mary Whipple, and Susan Francia, again, among the big group of Olympians, former and past. All right. It looks like anybody watching the Jumbotron will be able to see this. It is a 1,000-meter race. It is the national team exhibition. It has been told to me that in this race we have 36 national team members and 20 Olympians. So again, expect to see some competitive racing. Unfortunately, at the 1,000-meter mark, we don't have any stake boats, so this will be a floating start. I highly suggest watching this on the Jumbotron. We might see a little bit steering. These are the best in the world, but under these conditions, we might see a little bit of movement. Again, wind coming from port to starboard. These boats are getting blown on the start. So hopefully we'll be seeing that get underway soon. All right, we're seeing all the boats line up here, all squaring up, a few hands up. Hopefully, again, we're getting this underway in this race. Again, mentioning the awesome rowers in these events. We also have Emily Reagan, Megan Calmo, both Carol Brown and Tracy Brown. And we're off, here we go. All crews have crossed. Looks like we're starting with a decent rate here. We'll try and pick out who's in what boat, but right now it looks like lane 2. It's still pretty tight, but lane 2 has gotten an early start here. They're being pushed by lane 4. Again, I'm trying to come up with names as we look as the race progresses. All crews across are still afloat, which is good. All right. Anybody watching the Jumbotron can see that water getting nasty in that 750 to 500 stretch. All these crews being able to handle it, knowing what they're doing. They've all been there before. They've all rode in bad water. We see that unfold today. Looks like lane 2 pulling up a little bit. Looks like they've gotten the early lead. Lane 4 still keeping contact with lane 1. Lane 4 and lane 1 pushing each other about a length back here on lane 2. Again, from where we're sitting, we unfortunately cannot tell who is in whose boat because there's 36 national teams and 20 Olympians mixed in there somewhere. So all the way across, these women are putting in good strokes. Now that we're out of that windy section, coming up on the 500 to go, looks like these women are taking it conservatively, maybe a little bit careful since they haven't rode these lineups. Hopefully we'll see these rates coming up here in the last 400, 300 meters of this race. Looks like lane 2. Lane 2 rowing at a 34. Again, these women haven't rowed these lineups, so hopefully we'll see these rates coming up here in these last 250 meters. Looks like lane 4 coming up from the outside. Lane 4 at a 35. We have lane 1. Lane 1 is a 35 as well. Looks like lane 3 is matching up. Again, all these coxswains with their past experience trying to match these crews up. Bringing in here, last 250, crossing the red buoys. Hopefully we're seeing lane 2 here, now getting walked on by lane 4. Lane 4 throwing a little bit more heat. Lane 4 bringing that rate up. Lane 2 looking comfortable, but lane 4 making their move. Lane 2 holding on to that lead. Lane 1 and lane 3 now pushing each other. Lane 1 with a slight advantage over lane 3. As we come into the last 150 meters here, don't count out lane 4. Lane 4 looks like they're making their move. Lane 4 definitely wanting it a little bit. Lane 2 looking comfortable. Lane 2 looking comfortable, trying to hold on to that lead. Now it's coming down to about a bow deck. Lane 2 holding on to that lead. Lane 4 making their move. Have they done it in time, though? Lane 4 definitely going for it. Might come down to a photo finish here. Lane 2 crossing first. Lane 4 Lane 1. Lane 3. Thank you, women, for representing our country and great work today. It was a fun race to watch. All right, just a reminder here from that race, there's a meet and greet at the Champions Tent as soon as the athletes come in off the water. Again, mentioning more athletes that will be there from the 76 Olympic team is Karen Davies,
Dan Pachikoff,
Jan Pachikoff, and Anita DeFrance.